Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto, and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter, or X as it's now known. Now we are joined by 10th Man, Refracted Curvature, Adam, Neil, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Good morning, good morning.
Hey.
Good morning. Good to have you all. Welcome back. Had a short break. Went to the coast. Had some of the best weather we've ever had in England this year. Look at old me.
Tension in the air.
Say again?
Said you can feel the tension in the air. Everybody's raring to go.
Everyone's raring to go. I think we had a fairly relaxed pre-show. Anyway, let's do a bit of housekeeping. It's always good to get you in the mood with an actual bit of flat Earth evidence and globe debunking. So let's start with any evidence that you can acquire an elevation angle measurement from, say that again, from a curved baseline.
A nice picture you have up.
You like
What
that?
proof is that anyway?
First time anyone's mentioned the about a week's worth of work that it took to compile that massive, long, great big slide video that we use. I only update it every 2 or 3 years. I can't believe it's the case that I can say I update something every 2 or 3 years. Like that's normal. God, this show's been going a long time, eh?
No, not from a curved surface. Even the definitions, no matter which way you look at it, say two straight lines meeting a common point, creating a vertex at that common point, and an elevation angle is subtracted from 90 in navigation. So how do you get 90? Oh, there's a nice picture. You can't get that right angle triangle on a curved surface.
But no then. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth or Earth curvature?
John?
Well, you know, it's interesting you bring that up. I was wanting to relabel the Earth curve calculator to the flat Earth information loss curve calculator, and that would be more accurate from what it actually does.
But it shows a picture of a spherical surface. I mean, yes, the actual mathematics, if you took away the diagram. Go on.
But the surface in the depiction is flat and horizontal. The curve underneath it is actually pertain to the Rayleigh criteria and how much information is lost when you're changing in planes of altitude.
I see. I mean, you're strictly accurate because surface level is labelled and horizontal. That's a flat plane extending out, described as a tangent point from the globe Earth, described by a fundamentalist religious zealot who's appealing to the, quote, Earth curve calculator as being a representation not of the loss of information based on Rayleigh criteria and the differential between surface level and eye level, but ultimately the surface of a globe Earth they believe in. So I appreciate what you're saying is strictly accurate, and it's even labelled so, ironically. It says surface level and it's flat. But that is not how it's taken. And it's not how it's labelled. It's go on.
Right. That's the misinterpretation of those maths. That's not the maths themselves. So they're actually just mislabeled the things that they're doing.
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Yeah, what is it? When they decided that we were going to be a sphere when we're not, they said we got to have some invisible force keeping everything from flying off of something spinning in space. So they invented gravity, something no one's ever observed or seen.
Although I do it in the intro, I'm going to encourage everybody who's watching, 42 people, please share the show. It's the first live show in a little while. Well, a week. So yeah, smash that share button, like, comment, all that good stuff. Hopefully we'll get a few more people here. We do not get any YouTube algorithmic love, so the only reason we ever get up to 100 viewers, if you're new here and one of the 43 people now watching, is because people who smash the share button get it up to 100 pretty quickly, depending on how keen and enthusiastic they are for the show. So please share the show. We'll get onto a video shortly, but we'll do a couple more housekeeping questions in the meantime.
Before you go,
Yeah, go.
It's hard. I understand what you're saying, but when bigger channels are still calling you a scammer, it makes it even harder.
It's
So,
the
share
best
the show.
news. It's the best news we ever had, Neil. You watch the rebound from that.
We'll get to that.
Nathan.
So I'll get to that because I did republish some of the videos that had been more popular. Now, while I get criticised for using people's name in videos, it's like not necessarily strictly true when it comes to people like Jaron or Dave Weiss when we're covering Neil deGrasse Tyson, or as an example, I don't know who we're covering today actually, WGN News, considerably bigger than both of them, at like 500,000. Is that right? Something creeping up to 500,000 subscribers. Yeah, I mean, you can accuse us of that, and the reality is we do get more viewers when we cover internal squabbles about science and the scientific method. That is a fact. Therefore, when I go through them and go, right, what am I going to republish over the week that I'm not here? I'm going to pick the ones that have been most popular with the members. Those are the videos that get republished. In other words, the ones that have got the most comments and the most views from members. It's like, obviously, the members have taken it upon themselves to rewatch this or come back to it again because they've enjoyed it and just run out of time because they're obviously lengthy. So therefore, they're the ones that get republished. Now, some of them were specifically about Dave Weiss, Jaron, Whitsitt, etc., some of which got discussed in the pre-show. John's under the impression that Whitsitt doesn't like him. But I think that's unilaterally true for all of us, John. Anyway, we'll get to that after maybe a couple more housekeeping questions, just because we've been away for a little while. If that's okay with you, lads, unless you're super, super keen to discuss all of those video releases over the last week, which are all great. Check them all out.
Well, today's video is the India claim of landing on the moon, and then the second video is Neil deGrasse doubling down on that claim of India supposedly landing on the moon. However, I did post a picture of what you and John were talking about, the flat Earth information loss calculator, so to Master B, so the audience could see, and John's here so he can comment.
And about the begging the question, proof of nothing perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator.
Yeah, there's a picture there showing the horizontals and surface level, as we saw. Surface levels going out into space.
Okay. Right, but they've also got the marked with an X labelled horizon, physically, geometrically, straight line to it, Earth curve edge that is claimed to be the end result when it spits out something after the equal sign in this calculation, labelled Earth curve calculator. So where it says horizon in this calculation is a complete lie.
Absolutely.
Well, see, I don't know about that because what it is it's a misinterpretation of the data, right? That horizon is not brought up to surface level to give you the radius of the plane you're standing on. And
Wow.
the differential.
Wow, you're saying because it's labelled horizon dip, that strictly speaking, this useful calculation that's been around since, what, the 1800s, probably earlier, in terms of how they'll deal with the horizon. You're saying that this gives them plausible deniability for future reference because it is a misinterpretation and it's labelled as such with horizon dip. Therefore, the correction's only to surface level. So how are you going to square that circle given that you're seemingly taking this on a plausible deniability route, John?
Well, it is plausible deniability because only with the information we have now about the horizon not being geometric and elevation angles, unless someone can show that these arguments that we're putting forth have been given in the past at the time that this information was put forward, they do have plausible deniability.
Sure, but in the case of somebody who actually fundamentally argues for it being a geometric tangent point horizon, Earth curve based, they can't claim plausible deniability based on the calculation. Only the originators of the calculation could do that. I.e. Mick West, he can only claim ignorance, right? That's his only out. He can't say, oh, well, no. What I was actually saying was the dip to the horizon used by marinators. Marinators? They're making chicken curry. No, mariners is the dip to the surface level when you're correcting. Therefore, yeah, if you're creating this calculation and employing that useful aspect, you can claim as the originator that you've got plausible deniability in terms of how you have interpreted it. But not Mick West. He's physically argued that that is Earth curve marked with the next labelled horizon. Number one, from a globe perspective, why wouldn't he? Go on.
Well, but it's constructed, the way it's constructed, right, is, I'm echoing through somebody, but his own misinterpretation, because the math, he's just translating it into math. You know, he's taken the measurements and he's made this graph that you know, they call the Earth curve calculator, but it's just not what it is.
Gotcha. So it's only the title. So in other words, it's just that what I've paraphrased as the begging the question, proof of nothing perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator is simply the title that's incorrect, and the interpretation thereafter, reading the title that says you're looking at Earth curve in the maths, which you're not, the interpretation thereafter would be, you know, claimable as ignorance and justifiable. Just a quick shout out to James Mays. Wow, thank you very much. $50. Says, good day to the panel. Support the show, folks. Like you have. Really appreciate it.
Nathan, I'd like to comment on this. That video that Mariner did where he shows the triangle, I'm going to find one and post it up again so it's easy for you to show. He's showing you what John is talking about. Here it is. Let me do both of these, actually. Do this, and I'll do that.
While you're doing that, massive shout out. 72 people watching. Obviously, somebody took heed when I said please smash the share button. So 77 watching, going up. So yeah, thank you very much to all of you. Smash the share button. If you've just joined us, welcome. Please share the show. Okay, got your diagram up.
All right, so the Earth curve calculator diagram we just saw, we'll come back to that. The next picture you see is the box where you got the co-altitude after taking an elevation angle, using the horizon and the star, the navigator with a sextant, and then you subtract from 90, which gives you your zenith distance, which is the co-altitude. Now that red line coming down is the 90 degree of the observer. If he was on land, he can establish that with a plumb bob. He can establish that with a bubble section using the spirit level. But he's at sea, so he's forced to take the elevation angle above the horizon of the blue line where the star is directly over the Earth first. All right. So then you must minus that from 90, and then you must times what's the remainder by 60 nautical miles, which gives you 1,800 nautical miles zenith distance, which is the co-altitude. You need two planes there, two lines parallel. Okay, next slide. This was a video we did a week before we went on vacation here. And this was the Mariner saying, look, I could have easily shown you how to do a sextant, but I'm going to show it to you this way. This is what you're doing. And then he draws this right angle triangle and he puts it on a curved surface. And you can see it's a teeter-totter. It can't work. You got diverging zeniths all of a sudden. It doesn't match the previous picture of the box, which is in the celestial navigation books. So what he's showing you here is that if you're looking out at the horizon and you see the sun and you bring it down, this is what it's depicting. Now, if you go to the Earth curve calculator, where X marks the spot, that can't happen. So you got that teeter-totter. So what's happening is that surface level is what he's seeing. He's seeing a flat line, baseline horizontal, all the way to the horizon where he brings the sun down or a star, whatever, and does the waggle, does the rocking to get the zenith distance of the sun against the horizon. So if you can understand what I'm trying to say, this imagery in the Earth curve calculator, as John correctly described, is flat Earth information loss calculator, because that teeter-totter right angle on the globe is that surface level marked with the dotted line. No one ever sees the horizon dipping, except if you're 10 feet above the water line you have to take your eyes to the water line so that you can have that right angle triangle. I've been on a boat, I've been in the ocean many times where I have no sight of land, and there's nothing falling away from me whatsoever. And if you're going to do an elevation angle, you must have height of eye correction, because all the nautical almanac numbers are based on eyeball on the surface of a level sea, horizontal. It must match the rational horizon, which is the equatorial plane. And if you had a bubble sextant, the sensible horizon, also sometimes known as the rational horizon, at eye level. Both of those are horizontals. It can never work from a curved surface.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Hello, by the way.
Hey, Owen.
Well, if you angle a
Not too bad.
radar,
Here we go. Flat plane required. Go ahead, John.
yeah, if you angle a radar at it and you measure the return of the bounce signal and the angle that it comes in at, you can get a distance to it.
I love your phraseology. John's phraseology is a testament to the fact that he has gone up against Toon and Ruhif. So automatically, when John has, I'll come back to what he's just said in a second, when he's processed his grey matter to come up with that phraseology, he's automatically anticipating the interruption that will come when he starts saying it. So what he's done is he's incorporated the word angle in the first breath. Just say it again, John, just so I'll make my point by interrupting you, just so you know in advance what's about to happen.
Well, when you angle the radar...
No, we're not going to talk about radar here. Angle the radar. Respect. That's epic.
What's the angular distance to the sun, guys?
No. I don't know. You're not picking up what's going on here. What John's doing is he's incorporating the fact that the moment you mention angle, right, you're going to need a flat plane. Now, John knows this and knows instinctually, because he's, like I say, gone up against ballers, that he's got to get that quintessential flat earth proof into the first statement and breath so that it won't not reach the audience should it be interrupted immediately if there was somebody up against him right now, for instance, like me, an example. Right, John?
Yeah, that's the idea. They don't let you have more than a couple of words.
A couple of breaths, yeah.
Right. Well, I can be that baller for a bit and say that, yeah, well, all this questions about the distance to the sun, well, India's going to land on the sun soon. And then we will have, of course, by an actual touchdown, have an actual Euclidean distance to measure.
So now I can ask the audience, do I take fork in the road number 1 and go with John talking about elevation angles, essentially, not elevation, just angle measurements off a flat plane for radar? Or do I go with number 2, Arwin's segue, that's actually a very useful segue into the video that we're going to cover now, which is about the moon landing. So which fork in the road do I take, I ask myself.
I wasn't aware of that.
Well, you didn't know.
Whatever you do it in a curry.
Yeah, if I take too long, everyone will slip into a coma. Right, we're going to cover the moon landing video.
Is it Ayurvedic?
Let's just do both. John, can you just round out your example, because it was, strictly speaking, now rumpus and there's distance being put by your own friendly side from your actual point. So if you can round that out, then we'll do the video.
Right. Any claim of a radar bounce distance needs a plane of reference for the measurements. So you got to have a flat Earth to even calculate this crap.
With every day that passes, you as the audience will appreciate watching this show that the statement, you're going to need a flat Earth for that, applies more often than not. 90 people watching. Thank you again to all of you. Smash that share button. Please share the show if you've just got here. Very warm welcome if you have. Okay, so as always, we're going to be covering this videographer. We are cold, apart from 10th, who suggested it. I assume we're all cold to this video. So our reactions are as is. It's called The Final KM. India lands its, how'd you say that? Chandrayaan 3 on the moon.
Yeah, close enough.
Man, you can tell how not up to date with current events I am. I have no idea about this. This is probably I've seen about 5 seconds of footage so far on people like Level Earth Observer. Shout out to you, my friend, even though you're critical of us. You'll probably end up calling us a shill. But anyway, that's where I actually saw the moon landing footage. It was on Level Earth Observer's channel. So shout out to you, my friend, if someone can drop a link to you. Like I say, he has been a bit unfriendly because I supported Mark Sargent in his approach, even though Level Earth Observer doesn't appreciate it, which, to be perfectly honest, neither did I. That's why I approached Mark personally. But there we go. So maybe we're more in common, even though you found me defending Mark Sargent in your comments. Nevertheless, shout out to Level Earth Observer, who's my only foray into this moon landing nonsense from India. So I already kind of know what we're going to get here. But yeah, go and let this YouTuber know, at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. We critiqued your video. Obviously, I'm doing it for, is it altruistic? No, that's not the right word, is it? Selfish? Selfish reasons. I'd hoped that he'd put a link to our video in return, were he to respond and say, no, hell no, this stuff isn't cartoons. Nobody believes that the cartoons are real, or something to that effect. We'll see. Anyway, go and let him know, at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. Have you got any, as always, 10th, any sort of preamble that you want to offer up before we go into this video?
Yeah, this video had an hour plus version of it, not the exact same channel. I found this one that reduced the time because the following video, we're going to bring our good old friend Neil deGrasse Tyson, who comments on what we're going to comment, and we'll see the difference in how he comments versus how we comment.
Oz says, rumours are circling that there's a corner shop on the moon now. Is that English racism? I think it is. Anyway, very amusing. Back in the 80s, it was certainly true. Where I lived in England, I was in a predominantly Muslim part of the UK in Birmingham. And yeah, every corner that was potentially turnable into a shop at the end of a row of houses would be run by somebody Indian. But there we go. It's not necessarily the correct stereotype for the modern age, but thank you for the super chat all the same. Right, let's get into it.
Face
within 1 kilometer of the
जी
surface.
हाँ, अब हम फाइन ब्रेकिंग वेव्स के एकदम करीब आ चुके हैं। हाँ, आप तालियों के गड़गड़ाहट से सुन सकते हैं कि हम लोगों ने तीसरे चरण को भी बहुत ही सफलतापूर्वक हासिल कर लिया है और अभी हम वर्टिकल डिसेंट फेज।
If I can just get a quick thumbs up from the people in the live stream audience that the sound is actually okay. I've turned the gain up on this show today because people were moaning that it was a bit too quiet. There we are, hitting the reds with everything, but it's all leveled correctly. I just want to check that it sounds okay. So if you can give me a thumbs up and say sounds fine or something.
में आ चुके हैं जिसकी शुरुआत भी बहुत ही अच्छे ढंग से हो चुकी है।
I don't speak Spanish. Does anybody else here speak Spanish?
lot of applause indicates that till now the performance has been nominal.
What are we looking at? What the hell is this supposed to be?
Are you watching from the beginning?
Yeah, I'm watching from the
Okay.
beginning. We've
All
had
right, well,
46.
I don't see it on YouTube. I don't see what you're seeing.
Well, it's going out to YouTube. I can see it. I've got my live preview. Good job I don't pay too much attention to what people tell me when the stream is concerned. What we've got on front of us is something that looks like it's out of Battlestar Galactica. And I'm not very good with colours, but it kind of looks gold colour. It's an A shape. What is it? What's that supposed to be?
Well, I'm on YouTube on my phone, and I'm seeing not what you're describing, so it's not showing on my phone.
Okay. Let's not worry about what's shown on your phone. You've seen the video. What I've
yes.
got is a giant A shape. The letter A. Right. What is it?
It's their lunar lander. It's going to land and deploy some little droid that has wheels and it's going to go on the surface.
Okay. So this is supposed to be the thing they showed us covered in gold foil.
Yeah, basically.
No way. This is god-awful CGI, isn't it? I mean, this is atrocious. Go on. Did someone have a comment? Go on.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say, have they got to the actual calculations of the orbital mechanics they'll use to get that vehicle to the moon, or will they cover that?
I hope so, because I can steal some thunder here. I can sense it. There's gonna be a flat plane involved. There's gonna be some celestial sphere calculations and flat planes for that celestial sphere for the orbital mechanics extrapolations to get them the distances to travel to the moon, right, John?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you took the thunder.
I already did steal your thunder. I'm such a bastard. I'm sorry.
We are in the vertical descent phase 1. The altitude is being brought down from 800 meters.
So, presumably,
Altitude.
it says that this is live, but unless you're a complete Mongol, you've got to appreciate that this can't be live. Who's filming it? Obviously, there's no parallel spaceship running alongside this as it's descending towards the moon arse first, right? So while the general consensus would probably take this to be pictures of it landing, somebody with a tiny amount of discernment would go, well, obviously we're not watching live pictures of it descending. It says live in the top because the broadcast is live, i.e. we're receiving her updates live, and the information about what's happening verbally is claimed to be the information of what's occurring live. But what's on screen, I wouldn't think that anybody with any discernment would take this to be real.
Hang on. Before you rush to judge, remember we had, was it Flat Arthur from India? Is that his channel name? When he came on?
Well, that's what I was referring to. Flat Earther basically told us that the general consensus would be that only Flat Earthers are saying that this is real. Now, no, there's going to be a 10-20% made up on the spot by me, part of the Indian populace, that are going to say, oh yeah, that's obviously real. I watched it happen on TV. And then there's going to be 80% of the populace that go, no, we appreciate that we're not, complete idiots with less than 80 IQ that think this was actually some other ship that they didn't tell us about with the camera crew on it. Most people would have enough discernment to know that. But when Flat Earthers say, well, you, the 20% drongos, actually took this to be real, yeah, that's actually part of it. But you normally, in society, is going to go, well, no, I appreciate that all that's strictly about the reality of what's happening is the verbal updates from the person who's announcing, presumably from mission control, to relay it to the media so that we can hear her spitting out whatever, or we've got a direct feed to whoever's on Capcom or whatever it is, the communications line. And that's what we're actually hearing. I don't know. We haven't seen the inside and logistics of what they're claiming to be doing.
I'll go after John.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about that altitude that she mentioned. How did they calculate that altitude?
Perfect, you found your in. I don't know, John. Maybe you could tell us. There must be a calculation that we can refer to get that altitude that she's referring to.
I can about guarantee you'll need an angle measurement from a plane of reference.
So when she's talking about a descent rate, she's talking about a descent rate that's originally calculated for this fantasy journey into a reified sphere in a model that was used for various other purposes that weren't for flying, from a flat plane originally. Oh, fascinating. You'll need a flat plane for that descent rate.
Nathan, I've watched many videos on this topic. I chose this one because of the brevity, because we have a second one to follow. But when Flat Arthur came on, when this first happened, he said that if you live in India and you spoke against this in any way, you were unpatriotic. That's the way they've done this mass hypnosis, that India as a country has achieved something only 3 other countries have ever done. And so it's a big accomplishment. And so everyone has pride, and they probably throw parties, have like a Super Bowl party on this. Who knows? I don't know that for sure. But the whole point is that even a person in India could be a flat earther and see how they've mass hypnosed everyone. Now, Chocolate said when this happened that people were coming up to him and said, man, I can't believe that. Now, these are people here in the States that Chocolate is known to be a flat earther to. And then when they saw this, man, they were disturbed because this isn't real, but it's being posed as real.
Gotta correct you, Trent. It wouldn't be a Super Bowl party. It would be a Super Bowl party.
Okay. Right, 100 people watching, 103. Wow, thank you very much to all of you. Smash the share button.
And we are nearing and approaching the lunar surface.
जी, आप अपनी स्क्रीन पे देख सकते हैं कि लैंडर क्या हाइट लगातार कम होता जा रहा है। इस समय हम लैंडिंग साइट के जस्ट ऊपर हैं और इस समय इसकी ऊंचाई लगभग 600 मीटर के आसपास है। इस फेज के दौरान लगभग 150 मीटर के ऊंचाई पे पहुंचने के बाद लैंडर अगेन लगभग 20 से 22 सेकंड के लिए
Okay, what's all this?
Yeah, that checks out.
Hold on a sec.
My goodness.
What's all this? What are we looking at now? What's this on screen now? Let's just get a closer look. I'm just going to go away from my mic a sec. Local nav sequence state, vertical descent sequence substate, altitude, vertical velocity, horizontal velocity. What's that?
Ruh-roh.
No, I'm asking, what's that?
That's a reference to a flat plane.
Plane of reference, as Sean said.
So this validates what you just said, John. How interesting.
Yeah.
We are above the landing site. The horizontal as well as the vertical velocity is now being constantly reduced. And the lander module has begun its descent towards the landing site.
The other thing is that to me, a bit like, need to cross-reference Dilly Gill here, really, don't I? So when Dilly Gill said that they play their hand, NASA, that is, quite close to their chest when they're doing their fakery, and one of the methods they employ is something that he coined the term crapovision, which is to make it look crappier than it really is, intentionally to hide some of the fakery. Now, as I see this now, it looks intentionally crappy. In other words, what I just watched was it judder through the frame rate. Now, admittedly, I've just sped the speed up, but that's not going to change the smoothness of how this animation works. It just highlights how crappy the animation is, which makes you kind of wonder, given the level of quality of animation in general, or CG in general, notwithstanding that people would appreciate, let's just accept that they will appreciate that this isn't being filmed by a parallel spacecraft landing next to it so it can get nice footage. They're not that dumb. Why not polish it up? Why not make it look like the gold foil covered thing they showed in the photos that somebody's actually made? You know, they've paid people to wrap that piece of crap in gold foil after presumably producing quite a lot of actual high-tech stuff that's been tested in various different ways to make sure it's functionally accurate. For all their plausible deniability, they've got the real thing. They've got the actual gold foil covered lander. Now we cut to this. Why make it so crappy? There's a level of the deception that I've never really appreciated in this regard. It was the same with the moon landing. When you go back and look at the moon landing, and again, they were claiming that was real when they're filming the land come towards the module that's orbiting, the orbiter, right? That's supposed to be filmed with real cameras. But it obviously looks like something out of Thunderbirds on strings. It's really blatant. And you kind of go to yourself, well, I know they could have done a better job than this. We've all seen 2001. We know they could have polished it up, but they didn't. And this is kind of indicative of the same thing. Why make it so crap? Anybody got any ideas?
I have, Nathan, if you can hear me. Hey, everyone. Hey, Nathan.
Hello, good to have you.
Yeah, because... Thank you. The first thing I thought when I saw it is that everything can be made so well these days. Someone who's good with computers and with graphics, a 17-year-old kid on a computer can do a much better, more professional job than that. So why make it so crappy? It's because if they make it look good, then it'll only look the same as all the other fake stuff that's out there that can be made by students. Do you know what I mean? It's like who are learning this type of stuff. It's like it's so easy for you, me, or anyone to get the software and learn how to actually make something look good enough to be put into a movie. That if they make it look like that, then it just looks like what people will see in some movie or some homemade shorts video.
Gotcha.
So they make it look really
I kind of see where you're going.
for that reason.
So you're saying there's a low low rent standard that you or I could achieve, but rather than having their garbage be on the same standard as ours at all, just create a different set of crap and have it adhere to that, so it's not comparable to our crap. So our crap gets compared, if we were to make it, like you say, 17-year-olds in a university or whatever, making up their CGI, well, that kid would be comparable to Hollywood standard in terms of polish. But neither Hollywood or the student is going to be compared to this, because it's a completely different ball game. It's a totally different type of crap. It's not like it's just not polished. It's in a different league. It's like a different game. You know what I mean?
Nathan.
Go on.
Nathan, you know it's real because it looks so fake.
Hey, I was just going to say
Exactly.
Elon Musk knows why. But you beat me to it.
Maybe. There's a level of psychology that I don't appreciate here. Like I say, I can understand what Dilly Gill disseminates in terms of crapovision, but that's when you're filming men on high wire and then broadcasting that to an audience that sat 30 feet away from a 50-inch LCD TV, and then the people who are sat next to the TV are facing away from it, they're the hosts, and their cameras, two of them, are at different angles. One excludes the ceiling, because they're all on high wire in the ISS, and the other doesn't. But they incorporate the ceiling and removal of any artifacts from the wires in post-production, where they polish it all up. In the meantime, the live broadcast where someone's dangling in space can have a member of the audience raise their hand and say to the host, "Can you just ask them if they ever have any spillages on the ISS?" And then the host relays the information, or the person who's live linked from the ISS, claimed to be in space, immediately hears it with whatever 2-second delay, and then just answers on the fly, right? Their question that's come up from a live audience member. The whole thing convinces you of the magic trick. But the cameras that are filming the audience and the host and the TV all see a very low-res, fuzzy, lower camera angle, live link-up image, and nobody knows the difference. That's how the magic trick's done. Well, Dilly Gill explained that and compared post and pre-production live to each other after the fact. You can see it's very different angles. Not very different, but different. Enough for them to put in the ceiling like they did in the promo footage that you see from the film Gravity with Sandra Bullock floating around doing the exact same thing. Now, obviously, again, the standard, when you look at the polished version that Hollywood present for Sandra Bullock versus the live link-up, it's a totally different game. Now, they're not. They're both space, but this isn't comparable to Thunderbirds either, is it? Again, a different game. They've all got different standards to adhere to. It's just this is lower, even by NASA's crapovision standards. This is crapovision in CGI. You're like, why have you taken it to this extreme? So that you can say, no, obviously this isn't filmed. Look how crap it is. I mean, that's the only thing I can come up with, unless I'm missing one layer of psychology.
I can come up with something. No, I can come up with something. The society is so dumbed down, they know they could get away with it because they are getting away with it.
I wouldn't say Kent is wrong, right? Kent is right there. But what I would say is, if you look at the movie Jaws, the majority of that is left up to an imagination. So when you go in swimming, the movie you think about is Jaws, right? That has a kind of you're thinking about sharks because of Jaws. Because they showed you just enough shark, right? Even though it was a big rubber shark, they showed you just enough to terrify you. So what it is with things like this is that you make up the bits that they're not showing you in your own imagination. And that confirms it for yourself, if you understand what I mean.
I do, but that's chance. So that was luck. I know what you're saying. What you're saying is less is more in that respect. But they didn't know that when they produced the film. So what they were with, I know we're not on a tangent, this will link back, I promise. Brian's absolutely correct. But for the example being the precedent that was set by accident. In other words, not revealing too much of your hand, as Dilly Gill puts it, playing your cards close to your chest, was the inevitable outcome of having an absolute crap animatronic shark. So they were plagued with errors and couldn't get much footage of it. So they had to downplay how much you saw of the animatronic shark. But that had the adverse effect of building the suspense. Not seeing as much of the shark has led on to endless horror flicks that have used that principle. But before that, you know, the holding back on the animatronic monster wasn't their intention when they made it. And I agree, Brian's right. As an example, they've used the psychological effects that were observed after the fact with Jaws and then employed them by playing their hands close to their chest and not revealing too much information, only doing basic stuff. The guy's just dangling. He's not doing anything. He's just eating a Meals on Wheels microwave dinner. And that's it. That's all you see. In whatever gravity, they're fighting explosions and flying out into space and negotiating around with all sorts of really clever angles that make it look glorious. Well, that's not what they do with NASA. It's just some guy dangling eating dinner doing something totally mundane. So you're almost on the edge of snoozing by the time you finish watching it. But you remember that the guy was in space because that's what you watched. And so long as that premise is sold, you don't need anything else to sell the illusion.
That would be my second point. The first point was audiences dumb down. They know they get away with it. The second point is something we always talk about. We're talking about a violation of the second law of thermodynamics here. They don't want us to talk about that. They want two sides divided on how phony it looks, but it's out there. And one side's going to fight that it's out there and they just use this as a way of showing it, but it's really there. The other side is saying, no, look how fake it is, avoiding the whole fact that you can't even go there.
Exactly, Ted. And on YouTube, well, on TikTok, my wife showed me a video of, the disc in space. And it says, India finally proves flat Earth, the pancake in space, mocking flat earthers. So, yeah, that's what it's meant to do.
Maybe.
Well, Nathan, if you take your example earlier when you said, you're kind of answering your own question, I think, when you said, I wasn't specifically talking about Joe, I was just using that as an example. If you look at 2001 and then you look at the claimed moon landings, what looks a lot better? I mean, they're crapping it down the way. So you are more likely to accept it from an imagination point of view. That's how I would view it. Now, I could be wrong. That you make up the rest with your own imagination.
Sure. But I mean, Hollywood, to this day, still stealing or repurposing some of the over-dramatized, glitzy effects used in Space Odyssey. I.e., Guardians of the Galaxy 3 have got a scene where they've got a little kid running around on a hamster wheel while the camera spins and the guy who's watching seems to be spinning around on the ship that he's on while this hamster wheel spins and the camera spins in the opposite direction. You're like, okay, totally stolen from 2001. Now, by comparison, when you look at my example earlier with a guy just dangling eating a microwave dinner, it's a different game, isn't it? Now, I get you're agreeing with me. You're saying, well, just don't over-egg the pudding when there's no need to. But it still brings us back to the original question. We will get to the outer space is fake. Let's just pause on this image, quite handy as it is, right? So the point that let's segue back onto what the panel was just talking about, or Neil brought up specifically, outer space is fake. If the journey between this, where we're claimed to be sat wherever we are now, or what we are now, about Florida-ish, something like that, and you're supposed to fly out to the moon, then the area between the two is 10 to the minus 17 torr sky vacuum. All of the gas that we're currently breathing at high pressure would just immediately vacate into this area. In other words, if the rocket can take off from India, which is not on this picture, and travel out, then so can all the gas. It's just that simple. In other words, the area they're travelling through is a violation of natural law. You can't have gas pressure without containment, and you need a containerless system for a rocket to leave the system. Therefore, so can all the gas. So the whole premise of the journey itself is debunked, which is why typically we don't cover this very often. Yeah, this is a big enough profile event for us to cover it, but typically speaking, we're not covering space on NASA and ISS fakery ever. Why? Well, because if anybody ever brings it up, we just ask them, how can you have gas pressure without a container? Let's do that. Let's ask that housekeeping question. Is there any evidence that you can have gas pressure without containment?
None whatsoever.
No,
In fact,
absolutely
you can't
not.
even have a vacuum without a container.
Right.
Exactly.
There we go. That's why we
You
don't
know,
often cover this. Go on, John.
in relation to this, I asked my son the other day if he thought he lived in outer space, and he said no. I said, so where do you draw, or where is the container that separates you from outer space? If you don't think you live in outer space, then why would you think you live in this model they're showing you?
It's just wrong. As far as NASA are concerned, at least, space starts at sea level.
That would be my third point. So, first point, the people are dumbed down. Second point, it's a violation of the second law of thermodynamics to begin with. Third point, from cradle to now, this is what they're been brainwashed with. They can't get out of this paradigm. The movies, the books, the imagery. India can get away with this crap vision because since that child in the womb came out from the crib to now say they're 28 years old, they've believed in space. They've believed in moon landing. Doesn't matter what you show these people. They're under a
Ironically,
spell.
I just wanted to point out something about the kids. You talk about from cradle to whatever. Do you know what kids want to be these days? It used to be, when I was growing up, me included, I wanted to be a spaceman because it was cool. What do kids want to be now? A YouTuber. That's the top.
Well, there's plenty of
that's the
space
top
for that.
thing kids want to be. They want to be a YouTuber. Isn't that nuts?
No, because you can make money being a YouTuber. There's plenty of space for that.
Yeah, but space was far more exciting. I remember getting space Lego and being absolutely overjoyed with the prospect of fantasizing about space with the Lego. A couple of quick shout outs. Shout out to Alaric. Am I saying that right? Hopefully. Alaric87. He says, morning, showing support. Thank you very much for the super chat. Really appreciate it. It's just let chocolate saying in. Also, shout out to Retro Bill. He says, if the lunar lander, in quotes, crashes on the surface, will the animated clip art emoji break into pieces like a video game? No. yeah, it's one of those things, Retro Bill. They know in advance. It's shocking, I know, whether or not it's going to crash. Yeah? Kind of preordained
we've been
to
demonized.
succeed. They've already decided it's going to succeed. But thank you for the super chat. Go ahead, 10th.
Yeah, the flat Earth side has been so demonized by the algorithms and everything else that the common response I get when I talk to a newbie, you're not one of those flat earthers, are you? I said, why do you say that? Well, because they're making every flat earther look like a nutcase. All right. But we're asking good questions and we can't get any good answers to our questions. And then when we show this crapple vision, they're embarrassed. I can imagine Toon and Ruhif right now saying, why did India do that? That just destroys everything we thought we had. Because it's so bad that even anti-flat earthers and globers are embarrassed by this imagery because they know our arguments. But the average guy doesn't know our arguments. And when we give him solid arguments, we have to say, do you have logic and reason? Do you have the capacity to know when you're being swindled? Do you know when you're being conned out of something? How would you know? And these are the things that they don't think about because they've already been programmed for the globe since the cradle and then programmed currently to think every flat earth discussion is from a nutcase wearing a tinfoil hat.
I think the idea is that we argue about it, though.
Good morning,
whether or not
guys.
it'll work in space, whether or not the images are fake. Hey, who's just said hello? Was it Chocolate?
Yes, sir.
Good to have you. I think the point is
guys.
that we argue about it, whether or not the rockets will work in a sky vacuum. All that sort of stuff is feeding the feast of nonsense argumentation that we all got when we arrived. You know, looking at NASA fakery means we're talking about them. You know, that it doesn't matter if it's negative or positive publicity. There's no such thing as bad publicity for NASA in that regard. If you're arguing about whether or not rockets can work in space, you're accepting that space is real. Whereas, like I say, we cut that off at the knees before we even get into images from space and talking about, oh, look, this guy fades out in an edit when he transitions from one place to another. Okay. This guy drops his keys while he's floating around on high wires. Okay. This outside shot looks like it's got a rat running around. This one looks like it's got a guy holding the model up by string in a black outfit. Okay? Outer space is fake. There's no sky vacuum. Every single claim that you could argue about endlessly that I just listed can be demolished with one sentence. Yeah, there's no sky vacuum. Outer space is fake. All of those journeys, all of those footages, all those clips, all of those little fakery things that you go through, not really necessary. Once you know that, you know, it's akin to arguing about how things work in Narnia. Yeah, well, I'm sure that the gas lamp could just provide itself fuel forever. Who cares? It's in Narnia. It's in a fantasy land. You know, there is no Narnia. There is no outer space. So
but
go on.
Nathan, everyone knows Narnia is a metaphor. Not everyone knows this is a metaphor for. They think this is real. This is the brainwashing since birth. So this is why the housekeeping questions are solid. You don't need to go into all this stuff because it's an impossibility to have a vacuum next to gas pressure. The whole argument dies there. But we're talking about people who haven't reasoned or used logic to even test what they've been brought up with until they're challenged. So something has to give. Something in life happens to them where they start mistrusting government agencies or the narrative from the school system. Something has to happen for doubt to enter in. And when that happens, it's a possibility they can see the lies. But until then, they believe it.
Well, the only question I'd ask outside of can you have gas pressure without a container? If I was going to entertain any question outside of that, and I've thought about this, would be, what did NASA ever give us? Besides Velcro, I can't think of anything else that NASA actually gave us, the world, that mattered.
Bang.
I was just going to say that. Kang.
Currently, only 2 engines are now
Bang.
and we are nearly at
What?
zero velocity.
No, nothing. I mean, what you're saying, Brian, is what do they offer that can be put into practical application as a result of billions invested in space travel?
There's something playing behind you, Nathan. There's something.
Oh, intentionally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. Me. I've put it on. We're reacting to this video, and it's utterly boring. So rather than playing a little section of it and going, it's just the same crappy CGI image, and somebody, you know, people. Here we go. Let's just pause. What we've got on screen now, right, is a lot of Indians standing up in a control room and clapping and smiling. Now, what we saw preceding that was the exact same footage that had been up for the last 35, 40 seconds. In other words, there's no correlation between their elation and what's going on screen. Now, obviously, you could just say, oh, that's just they don't know how long it's going to take to descend, and the footage is 5 minutes, and it actually only took them 3, so you've got 2 minutes of them still descend. You know, you could make up excuses, but this kind of elation that they're experiencing is because they're all under the misapprehension that what they've just achieved, because their monitors in front of them say that they've just landed, or whatever it is that they're cheering about in this process. This is what they've actually got to go on. Now, it's not particularly big in terms of what you can see on screen now, but they're all just sat in front of monitors. Now, as we've already pointed out, they're not watching a live feed of the thing landing, are they? Right? So what are they watching? They're all just watching numbers. Now, every single person here, you won't see any dishonesty in their relation. They all genuinely believe they've just achieved something based on the numbers they've seen on this monitor. They haven't. It's like saying, yes, we won the war in Narnia. Woo! Now, because they all believe Narnia is a real place to have a war in, they're all really pleased. Now, we all know that there is no war, there is no Narnia, there is no landing, there is no space. They don't know that. They're just going on the data. In other words, these people are all sadly deceived. Now, like we had to discuss in 2014, 15, 16, when we were still covering this stuff, the compartmentalization of NASA means that every single person, engineer, technician, reporter, who works for NASA, none of them are lying. It's not like every single person in this room that's elated is putting it on. No, they're not. No, they actually are elated with their performance and the stats that have been presented to them on these monitors. Yeah, that's how it works. So if you speak to any of these people, they'll give you testimony to how they landed on the moon, because they genuinely believe it to be the case. They were part of it. No, they weren't. We know they weren't. But we don't have to get into that debate. We don't have to demean their, if they're a technician, ability in technical terms when they actually created something and wrapped it in gold foil and tested it and made sure it would work and would stand the rigours of what they thought it would go through. Yeah? Now, I don't know what they do with that technology after they blast it off in a firework. Probably dump it somewhere and then collect up the remnants so nobody ever finds out. But does the technician know that it's just been smashed into the ground here on Earth? No. They think it's made its way to the moon and they're very proud of their work. Now, how have I got all this concise summary when we don't cover this stuff? Well, I got it all from Jaren. Credit where credit's due. This concise summary came to you by the lips of Jaren originally, who disseminated this as articulately as I did just then, right? Because that's how this used to get covered. Now, yes, I can paraphrase Jaren's exceptional dissemination of how compartmentalization would leave you with a lot of people believing that they've actually done this. His example was somebody who claimed his uncle had created a part for the Saturn V. Okay, I'm sure he did. Doesn't mean it wasn't dumped in the Bermuda Triangle after you watching a fireworks show. Doesn't mean that it was even on the firework. You know what I mean? But there we go. It doesn't change the fact that there's very few people that need to be part of the actual lie, the perpetration of the lie, to dupe these people and everybody else. Now, it's so successful, that's why it's made its way to us. Now, the Chinese one didn't. When you ask anybody in the Western world, us, what about the Chinese landing? They'll go, what? What Chinese landing?
Nah.
Look,
Go on,
when you
Let's
see
not talk about that one.
when you see when you see satellites with solar panels being taken up into the sky with balloons held up by cranes, and then they're trying to tell us that spaceships take them up way out there into space and they're orbiting. Say, then why do you have these balloons? Does balloons go into space? I thought they pop at a certain point. And then Google's
of course,
got
that's why NASA spends the most money in the world, I believe, on helium.
yes,
right?
yes, they
So that
do
makes
buy the
sense.
most helium, but even Google had plans, and probably is already in action, is a solar powered glider with a satellite that could stay in the sky for 5 years.
Minor correction.
Now,
Just minor correction. Helium are the in terms of their consumption, they're at the top of the consumption of helium. No matter spending money or producing or anything else, they consume the
birthday
most
parties.
helium of anybody.
lots of birthday parties in NASA,
Right.
probably, right?
But-
Okay. Now,
but there-
well, almost done. So I traveled 2.5 hours to a state park, and I posted some pictures of a beautiful lake. And a majority of that travel, no phone reception, no radio, nothing, no GPS, Zippo. Not enough towers, not enough repeaters.
There is no satellites. Satellites fall under the same category as ISS fakery, trips to the moon, trips to Mars. It's all fake. There are no orbits. Now, do we know of circular wind patterns that could be utilised for balloon satellites that we know exist now? I mean, you saw earlier on this the stream of cards that are currently running, right, with Black Swan versus Refraction. Earlier, you had The Simpsons from about mid-90s, maybe it's not, maybe it's early 2000s, but they're showing the Fox satellite, and it's just dangling on a few helium balloons, rickety with the panels falling off it, as Lisa looks through a telescope. That's what she sees, the Fox satellite, in quotes, right? Well, they were way ahead of the game. They knew that we'd be exposed to this stuff further down the line, and now we are. Now it's openly admitted. Yeah, we've got balloon satellites, yeah. Okay, well, what about the ones that we get normal footage for those, right? They are low rent, no frills, just someone with a camera filming a launch. All looks very real. There's nothing fake about it, right? Well, again, totally different game. Yeah, it's not glitzy and glamour. There's no edits. There's no explosions going off. There's no countdowns or people in. There's nothing like that when they launch them. It's just a truck. Some guy pulls a lever and it goes clunk and off it goes. No countdown, no mission control, nothing. But the footage looks real, because it is. Meanwhile,
No
satellites
switch
claim
to
to be in a sky
CGI.
vacuum in orbit. Who's rumpusing me? Meanwhile, sky vacuum-based orbital satellite, where's the just real footage of them? No, there isn't any. Go on, whoever that was.
I was gonna say there's no switch to the CGI panel that always happens when we watch rockets, right? You see the live footage, and then all of a sudden, now we switch to cartoon version. You don't get that when you watch balloons. It's just, hey, look, it's the blue. It's still there.
Yeah,
We can
there it
just
is.
show
Off
you.
it goes.
Yeah.
I have 2 points about this. One, the existence of balloon satellites does not. It would be a non sequitur to say that that proves the other satellites don't exist. But the orbital assertion requires a plane of reference. So where are they getting that plane of reference to do their orbital mechanics?
Well, they're not when they're inferring Earth spherical. So the mechanics and the maths that they're basing it on are going to be derived from a flat plane in the first instance, and then can be misinterpreted to the idea and notion of a heliocentric world with the sphere Earth and things falling around it. But that simply isn't the case.
Well, that famous saying, the only thing that NASA ever brought to space was your imagination. That says it all. Because without, see, what they are is they're masters in psychology. And they know what the people want, what the people need to believe. Because that's all they need is people's belief. And if they can show you something that will allow you to fill in the gaps with your own imagination, and all those gaps are helped then by Hollywood movies and media. You know, your own imagination is what created heliocentric space, if you know what I mean. So,
Whoever gave me this photo, thank you. So here we go. The no glitz, no glamour, however very high resolution image that is in no way fake. But do you see the industrial light and magic poles all the way around this balloon as it takes off? No. Do you see a rather dirty, ugly crane holding it? Yeah. Where are all the people? Where are the crowds? Right. Yeah, this is just a normal picture of something happening that does take place. There's far less glitz and glamour about it. There's no cutting to the fake balloon in CGI form. There's no necessity for that. Should I extend the show a little bit? Just going to do a quick appeal. We've got 100 people watching, still 101 people watching, right? Please share the show. If we can get up to 120 people, I'll extend the show out and we'll cover this latest video, which is on screen now, which is Neil deGrasse Tyson talks about India landing on the moon's south pole. Okay. We'll cover that as well.
Oh, really?
But before we do, again, please let... I've covered the name of the channel. WGN News know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me in the meantime, as I've played all the way through. It was only a short video, but I played the footage so we could react to it. Saw the people clapping and cheering, and hopefully we did a good job. Don't normally cover it, like I say, but please let them know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me the vain hope that they may indeed respond to us and tell us how absurd it is to even assume that this stuff would be taken to be real, as Flat Earther was explaining.
Just within the title ball.
Point. Sorry.
Go on, Adam. We haven't heard from you yet, so go ahead. Hello.
Because I'm dipping in and out here, but did I hear the southern pole of the moon? So is this a magnetic pole or a point of rotational pole?
I'm at a loss to answer that, I'm afraid, Adam.
I was going to go with it's a polar coordinate, Adam, from a flat plane, but you probably have something with the magnetic side of that.
Well, just a simple question. If you're going to state this thing, at least state what it actually is instead of just saying it as saying. So your brain will fill the gaps in.
That's the point.
It's the pole on the moon.
It's the title. Like you've seen Yes Minister, right?
Yeah.
I've given the example several times where the dirty secret, the bit that you don't really want to talk about, you put that as the title. Well, in this instance, that's what they're doing in Neil deGrasse Tyson. There's no way he's going to actually talk about the moon's south pole, but it's there in the title.
Are you certain about that?
I mean, in terms of... let me qualify what I meant. In terms of Adam's question about what that actually is he going to be defining it specifically as Adam would hope to answer that question? The answer to that is no. Yeah, he's going to be talking about the moon's south pole with the assumption that it is what, Adam? That's the point.
Well, he's going to, and I won't spoil the surprise, he's going to divert Adam's question and say there's something important there we're going to find out about, taking you even further into the ridiculousness.
Check it out. Somebody,
Yeah, but
before we hear it, somebody's taking heed. 107 people watching, rising slowly. So if we do get 120 people watching, we will cover this video today live. 106. Somebody's taken back their share. We'll see. We might round out in the next 5 minutes. We'll see.
Just real quick, to have the polar coordinate, though, they would first need a plane of reference to get that polar coordinate. So where are they getting that?
Well, from the flat plane of Earth that we dwell atop. That's how it all gets derived. Earth is flat and all roads lead to a flat Earth.
Well, no, I'm saying even the calculation of the moon's poles, they're going to need that equatorial plane of the moon, right? So they're, in essence, mathematically, they're claiming they're leaving one flat plane and going to another flat plane.
Well, no, I don't know if that's the case. I mean, mathematically, I don't know how they derive the journey, which is presumably why Adam asked the question about what do they mean by South Pole, because in terms of a geometric reference point to calculate off a flat plane, which you're not wrong about, how do they describe it? Has any of us ever seen the maths for the described journey? They're always talking about things like this. This is interesting. They were talking about, or Tyson specifically was talking about that they know they went to the moon because of the calculations of the fuel consumed. Well, hang on a second. Now we know that they're going to need Earth as a flat plane of reference to give them their orbital mechanics, their distances, their Venus assumptions, all of the above, to give them their distance. When you actually plug that in as maths, as you now question, John, what do they actually calculate? Do they calculate that plane of reference to another different plane of reference? I'm struggling to wrap my head around what they would actually do in the maths to claim the calculation for the fuel. I want to see those calculations. He's mentioned them enough. Who's ever seen them? To give them this bullshit story where we say, oh, who cares? Space is fake. It doesn't matter that they can say they can calculate the fuel used, therefore it can't be fake. Why would you drop that in? It's like Rumpus back in 2015 dropping in that sextants prove a globe. Oh, why would you drop that in? What you mean you can calculate the journey and the fuel used on the journey? Okay, I'll call you bluff. Let's not skirt around it and point out the space is fake, so it's absurd anyway. Let's see those calculations and see what you're actually doing. How are you calculating how much fuel you'll use on the 250,000 miles or whatever it is? What do you do?
Did they cover that already by saying that they've already lost all the telemetry data along with destroying the technology?
Oh, you're telling me that when I ask for the calculation, they'll say, oh, all of those very complicated maths for the fuel consumption were lost with the telemetry data. So Neil deGrasse Tyson's just basically lying through his back teeth when he says that we know the maths. We don't, we lost it. So even his claim that the maths proves it isn't fake, we haven't got that maths anymore. So what? Yeah. It doesn't prove that it's not fake. Would be the way they'd hope you argue.
It might sound silly, but that might be exactly what it is, right? Because they already believe they've gone to the moon, right? And then they've come back. So now that they've come back, they've done it already. Well, what do all the Globers say? Oh, they don't need to go back. They already went there, which is what they use to cover why. Oh, they destroyed the telemetry data. They lost the telemetry data and destroyed the technology, right? So that's the excuse they use. So Neil deGrasse Tyson could just sit there and say, yeah, we calculated, we know we went because we calculated. So that's how we know we went. Now, we already went, so we don't need those calculations anymore. Right?
Morning, y'all.
And that works on people. People have literally said to me, yeah, we don't need to go back there. We already went. Okay. So why would we need the technology and all that? People are crazy with that.
Good morning, y'all. Hey, I got an idea. We can. Oh,
D Rose.
Yeah. Go on.
No, I got an idea where we can find those calculations, Chocolate. Why don't we check out Hidden Figures again? Let's review that movie with Taraji P. Henson, because they supposedly had some things written down supposed to be the figures that was the calculations for the distance and the fuel measurement and all of that. Being facetious, but
Is that
it is there.
Was that supposed to be about the lady or something who came
Yes,
up
the
with
two
the
women. Yeah.
calculations?
Yes,
Or the
the
two
Yeah,
ladies?
that was. Yeah, remember we mentioned that before. That's how they grabbed the demographic, and they try to grab
Well,
the support of saying, oh, it was two sisters. The same thing with Tyson.
I remember
How
this.
you discredit? How can you
Didn't she
discredit
use?
these two African American women?
I was just about to say that it was an African American woman. Therefore, there was some aspect of that pulled into it as well, was there not? I do remember this.
Yes, two of them going through discriminatory, oppression during the Nassau sexism,
Right.
misogynism, and racism. So how dare
what was the
you
name of the movie?
discredit the moon landing? Hidden Figures. And they wrote
Hidden
down these
Figures.
calculations, and that was a success. They were the key to the success of the lunar landing. African Americans don't appreciate
No
you
way.
disrespecting the lunar landing.
So that movie,
Yes.
good call, D, specifically muddies the waters for Neil deGrasse Tyson's claim and the telemetry data and the overall bullshit of the journey and the overriding point that it's not real because it's not real space. They can't travel through it. This all links back. It's just one big, massive muddying of the waters, isn't it? Well, now we've got an extra set of calculations by somebody of the African American community. Let's all focus our attention on the fact that she's black. Don't forget she's black. Is everyone paying attention? She's black. I just want to take a poll from the audience. Does everyone remember that specific detail? Oh, yeah, by the way, something about maths and moon travel and yeah. But she was oppressed. God damn it. Right? More muddying of the waters and utilising that particular aspect. That's why that's made its way to the mainstream. Shocking, isn't it? The things they'll exploit to muddy the waters.
Precisely.
Good.
And people walk on eggshells and tread carefully trying to discredit the moon landing, because then you're discrediting the success and the achievements of an African American woman
Precisely.
who contributed to the great achievement of USA going to the moon.
Well,
Yeah.
just want to add in something here, right? That any calculations for fuel usage will have to have a separate calculation involved. And that calculation has to be a force of gravity, because they're dealing with attractive forces orbits. So any calculation has to add in force of gravity. It has to, for fuel, for anything to do with the journey. It has to add in a force of gravity.
That was the other time that Neil deGrasse Tyson was on Joe Rogan or wherever he talks, right? The first time he said, oh, it could have been the same episode. He said, yeah, we know because we calculated the fuel. And then I think it was, I'm not sure if it was the same one, but he said, yeah, we obviously we use general relativity to get to the moon. So we could use anything we want as long as I say it, because I'm Neil deGrasse Tyson.
And with that, I'm going to say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So another massive thank you to all of you smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed with 115 people watching. Unfortunately, this is going to be where we say farewell. So another massive thank you to today's Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!